blasted, stupid harmonica. I swear one of these days I'm going to send you straight to hell. Hello, folks. I didn't see ya. Hello. Again, my name is, well, the folks around here, they just call me the storyteller. And have I got a doozy for you tonight? It's filled with murder and skullduggery and evil. It's just a typical nighttime story. It's called The Trap Sisters. You know, there's a small town still there to this very day. A town in the San Diego County mountains called Julian. And it is known throughout the world for its charm, its rustic beauty, and of course, its apples, and especially its apple pie. No one would never suspect that such a lovely little place would become notorious for murder and mayhem and madness. But it was. Round 1869, gold was discovered by a local by the name of Fred Coleman. And his history has shown throughout the years, where there is gold, there is sown people. Lots and lots of people. People of every type and description. Good people, bad people. Why, even some in between. What I mean to say is, they don't mean to be bad. They just don't realize that something that seems natural and right to them doesn't mean it's right for the rest of the people. Well, the little town started to grow quickly because miners have needs. They need tools, so someone starts a hardware store. Someone needs clothes, and a tailor comes along. Prospectors need, well, you know what I mean. And that'll be taken care of too. Now, sure as shooting, miners got to eat. So cafes and eat places spring up all over the place. And that brings us now to the subject of our little story. You see, up in the hills, not far from the diggings, was a small cabin in the forest. In that cabin lived two very, very old spinsters named the Trap Sisters. Yes, that's who they were known to by the locals. Sarah and Emily Trapp had been living in these mountains for, well, no one really knows, you see, because they'd show up or they'd show up from nowhere, and all they really knew was that these two old ladies were nice and they could really, really cook. Sure, but the problem was, you see, the sisters seemed to disappear from time to time. Time would go by and they would be forgotten. Kind of a low legend. New prospectors would come and go to the mountains and they would dig for gold. But you see, these, as all prospectors, were hungry all the time. And the diggings was a long ways away from the town. But ya also gotta know, these here miners, they were a dedicated breed. To get them to leave their diggings was near impossible. It had to be something mighty important for them to walk off their claim for even a minute. But one day around lunchtime, the diggings was interrupted by an aroma. Not just any aroma, but the kind of aroma that makes a man stand up and pay attention. That perfect, impeccable perfume of food. One day an old-timer, Rusty Pete came up to the diggings chewing on a pie. And not just any pie, you see. But this beauty as a pie was something that the miners had never seen the likes of in their lives. The pie had a thick crust cooked to perfection and golden brown, with just the right amount of crunchiness that made the birds stop singing and the breeze sit still. Ain't just so it would pay attention. And not only that, folks, the insides of that pie were made from apples and meats and spices. Believe you me, folks, it got the miner's mouth a-watering. They all gathered round Pete and started pestering him, asking where he had got this delicious delicacy of delight. Well, all Pete would say is that he got it down the mountain. As much as they pestered him, bribed him with gold, or even threatened him with violence, he would not reveal where he had gotten this delicious piece of pastry. Now you gotta imagine, this of course was not the end of it. You got to know something about these miners. Miners have bought, begged, and borrowed, and stolen other men's claims. They have murdered each other for just saying howdy. But nothing had the attention of these men more than where Pete got his pies, which he ate with a helping of relish and a pinch of selfishness every day. I'll tell you that the men abandoned their claims to follow Pete, and others went on their own. Many were never seen nor heard from again. Now, this was not unusual in this part of the mountains. This was dangerous country, full of mountain lions, snakes, bad cold weather, claim jumpers, and deep canyons, where someone could fall and become part of the topography of the mountains forever. Others would, after years of heartbroken work and toil, never find 1 ounce of gold, abandon their claims and go back to where they came from, never, ever to be heard from again. Eventually, the source of the pies was discovered. Some say old Pete had a change of heart. Truth is, the miners showed him the noose they were going to hang him with if he didn't fess up. It was the Trap sisters that made the pies, he confessed, and after that discovery, the miners would beat a path to the spinster's door. It was the aroma that floated throughout the forest and into the mountains all day long that the men tracked down. It was very odd that the aroma suddenly came out of nowhere. And oddly enough, men were still disappearing. One day, Pete himself, smug and satisfied with himself for discovering this true gold mine, knocked on the Trap sister's door. Emily answered with her usual good humor and pleasant closed-mouthed smile. To Pete, it was just like any other day. He would march over to the ladies' house, chat a while, and take home some pies. The trouble was the spinsters had run out of one of the main ingredients of their pie. Mainly a miner. Yes, poor Pete. He never had a chance. He was a goner from the moment he took one sip of their special blend of coffee. The last thing old Pete saw before he ended up in Crazy Joe's lunch the next day was the Trap sisters smiling at him with razor-sharp teeth. Yep, and as the next day came and Crazy Joe Pete's best friend, took another bite of his delicious pie the next night, he wondered where Pete was. He just wanted to thank him for discovering this wonderful treat. Oh, well, he thought, maybe he'll see him tomorrow. After all, everything comes out in the end. Thank you all for listening.